Hey, Femme! Welcome back to another episode with your girls, Carolina and Tessa.
Hi.
T- Hi, Tessa. We have had quite the season and we're coming close to it being the season end, right, girl?
Yes.
But it's been so great to again connect with more people, and we have another guest today from Instagram. I came across her profile, Miss Jessica Michael Davis. She is an actor and filmmaker, originally from Ohio, moved to the big NYC.
Yeah, East
And
Coast. I still consider
yeah,
Ohio
yeah.
East Coast. I mean, I know it's like really the Midwest, but like people call Pennsylvania the Midwest, and I hate that. So I'm calling Ohio the East Coast.
They do not.
They do.
They call
They do.
what?
But here's the thing. Okay, so like Pennsylvania, you've got the Pittsburgh end and the Philadelphia end. The Philadelphia end is unmistakably East Coast because it is right next to New York City. So like
Yeah.
we're still the same state over here in Pittsburgh. Like we're still East Coast, okay?
Uh, well, I guess you guys are kind of out there in the
We're the
in
west
country.
of the East Coast, all right? We're not the Midwest.
There's the distinction we needed. But yeah, she gives us East Coast vibes with her hustle for sure.
Mhm.
We love her positive mindset and energy. I love the way she approaches filmmaking. It's very relatable to me as a writer. And I just think we get into some great topics about LLCs for films, platforms she's used, and tools she's used to help her keep it structured and organized, and the legalities of it all, as we all love as creatives to deal with. So I think this is going to be a great episode for y'all to tune into and learn about maybe some tools that you can use when you create your films. So happy listening, fam. We love you. Don't forget to rate us. Okay, bye.
So, Carolina, actually, why don't you start because you had found Jessica on IG. So I just want to like talk about what drew you to her and like what made you excited. Because when you brought her up to me, I was like, oh yeah, like her stuff is really cool. So like, what stood out to you?
I just love that she came from an acting background, and that's what it appeared to me on the gram, that you're an actor, and then what you were really putting out there was that you had created your own films, and we just love that so much. That's very much who we are. We're actor filmmakers. But I thought that was really amazing that you've already produced a couple films yourself, and that really stood out to me. And of course, we're here to support our women, our ladies in the industry. So I was like, I have to have her on. And I love the way you were showing the different process of your filmmaking steps on IG. I think that's really cool. It's always great when you can see where a filmmaker's at, like real time. And I definitely just saw your recent post about making your latest film an LLC, and I have lots of questions about that. I think a lot of people, when it comes to the legalities of stuff, it kind of goes over your head, and so it always helps to like refresh and hear what someone else did in the industry. So I don't know if you'd be open to talking to us about that, but that's something too that I was like very curious about.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So cool, Jessica,
So
let's start from the beginning with you, like just a little background on yourself, how you got started and what took you into filmmaking specifically and yeah, just kind of your whole path.
Yeah, it's interesting when I look at it because I really didn't get into it like till 5 years ago. But looking back to my life, I've been doing it my whole entire life.
Yeah.
I started writing stories by like the time I was 4. My mom used to like get the little binds for them, so there's like all these books I used to have.
oh,
Um, I used to when I was 9, like in the talent show, I like produced, cast myself as the star, and directed this little stage play.
naturally.
And then when I was 10, I wrote a feature-length script and sent it to Richard Linklater. Um, Looking back, I was constantly telling stories, acting. I used to edit videos in like Windows Media Player. But how life is, and so I went on like a traditional route for a moment in high school, and all this pressure to make a life for myself, which is actually what my next film is about. This feature, it's like all the pressures of having your life figured out. And I was really good at math and science, and I got a STEM scholarship to Akron U, which was just like a local university in Ohio. And I almost fell into that trap. But luckily, I started taking acting and dancing classes, and I started dancing professionally in Ohio. And I just loved the performance aspect because my technique wasn't that great, but they told me that I made it because I was a performer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that my heart just, I allowed it to keep following that track. And I signed up for a backstage account while I was in Ohio and used to take the mega bus from like Pittsburgh to New York for a day, audition for things. And then I eventually booked one of those. And I don't know, I just told myself in a week, I was like, let's do it. Like, I'm moving to New York, I'm doing this. And it was difficult because I had good things going for me in Ohio. You know, I had this scholarship, I had this dance team, um, and no one really understood it. Like, they were all like, well, we're gonna go do the thing in New York, and what's that gonna do? And I was like, I don't know, but I just feel like I have to follow it. Um, and yeah, so I got here, and that dance gig did not pan out. Um, it still got me here, and I knew that I wanted some serious acting training. Yeah, I just wanted something really intense, and I eventually found that. So I graduated in 2019, and within that acting conservatory, we are also started to study film, and I think that's when like my filmmaking side started to come out a little bit, like storytelling. I was like, wait, I really love this. And so for my thesis film in that filmmaking class, that was my first short film that I made, and I knew it when I was going into filming it. I was like, I want to take this to festivals and just like start as soon as I graduate. Um, and I did, and so that's led me here. And I think I just keep following whatever step I feel is next. I never really know what it is going to be, but I just keep, yeah, taking the next step, and it takes me to new stories, and I keep meeting all these amazing and inspiring artists who I continue to collaborate with, which helps me get all these opportunities because I just keep making stuff with my friends. So it's been really great, and that's where I am now. And with this feature film too, in front of me, it feels like a scary big step, and like maybe, you know, it's too soon, but at the same time, I just told, like, it just felt so right. Like, yeah, you're supposed to do this year. And so I jumped in, and it's surprisingly going really well. So yeah, I guess I keep just following my path. Not really sure where it's going to land me, but excited to where it goes.
Yeah, good for you for just like, not just falling into what a lot of people would be like, oh, well, that's the, the path you're supposed to go. Like, you're good at this academically, so take this scholarship. Like, you knew you had passions elsewhere and you pursued that. And like, good for you for that. Also, like, I'm from Pittsburgh. That mega bus ride is a long time. So good for you for doing that, like 4 auditions and everything. And it kind of, it reminds me, Carolina and I just did another podcast episode interview, and we were talking about like how people are so afraid to take that next step and like make that move. And, clearly it can pay off. You're proof
And
of that.
catapult to something. Like we were
Absolutely.
talking about how, we're always scared, like putting so much pressure is this the right decision? Is you taking that dance role the right decision? And you jokingly were like, yeah, it didn't really like work out to what I thought it was going to be, but you said it got you to where you the next phase in your life,
Yeah.
the next place. And had you not done that mistake, quote unquote, you wouldn't have been where you are. So I just loved hearing that. That is so amazing that you could just, you do have to be brave about it and just be like, it's okay. Like this just feels right now. And it's okay if it fails,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. It's like failure is only going to teach you a lesson. Like, yes, it's disappointing, but like if you can take that and roll with it and learn like, okay, so maybe that path wasn't for me, or that led me to this. Like, you got to be constructive with it, and creative with it. Yeah.
So talk to us about this Escaping Ohio is this film that you were talking about where you were like, I'm not sure I want to like make it this big feature film. So talk to us about the different phases and what it's about.
Yeah. So Escaping Ohio was born out of quarantine last year, almost a year ago, actually. I had met this really incredible actor. We were connected through one of my acting coaches, and we just knew that we wanted to collaborate on something. We had this like instant banter and chemistry that worked really well.
Yeah.
And the way that I write is I kind of like vomit things up and I don't really know where it comes from. So this script for the short film, I wrote in a night, and the more and more I worked on it, the more I was like, wait, there's like actually a lot that means a lot to me in this. So I just kept working on it, and yeah, we went into the short film. We did crowdfunding for it, and it's just the journey into making the short film was so incredible. And then we did a 4-day shoot, and it was literally just the most magical week of my life. We got the amazing people. Just I don't know, it was the energy. I just really trusted my gut when choosing people, and it just yeah, it always pays off.
Right.
And
As it
yeah, it
should.
was.
Yeah. It does.
But by the time it was over, I was so incredibly sad. And I think I just realized it's because like we knew that this journey for these characters and the story wasn't over. And that last day on set, we're like, no, we're coming back for the feature. So we just there was definitely going to be a feature. There's more to this journey, these characters, and at the time, I've assumed, we wouldn't do it like, we would take like a year to develop it and go a traditional route, take the short film to
Mhm.
festivals, prove our worth, and take the traditional route of like short to feature. Um, However, when January came around, I don't know exactly what it was, but I was actually on a panel in Clubhouse and I said it publicly. I was like, I have this gut feeling that I'm supposed to make the feature this year, but that seems so soon. And someone was like, well, I mean, if your gut's telling you that, then you should do it. And that was when I was like, yeah, I'm doing it. Um, so yeah, so we're jumping in and making it, and we're shooting it 20 days in August.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
2 days in Jersey. And it's just been the most incredible journey where things just keep opening, like doors keep opening, things keep falling into place. It's just been really, really incredible. And so the story itself is two 18-year-olds facing adulthood in Ohio. And it is similar to my life. It's not based on anything that's happened to me, but the character is very much inspired from me. Whereas, she has these opportunities in Ohio, like a STEM scholarship and all these things that make
Mhm.
sense. And the pressures from the town and just yeah falling into that life, but when it doesn't like spark any fuel in you, it's like should you follow that? And I think when you're 18, it's just um the life just looks so big and terrifying, and you're scared that you're not going to find your way. And even now too, like I'm not 18, but it still resonates so deeply with me, this story of like, is this next step, like, is it going to be the right thing, like, is this the right move? Is this going to take me where I'm supposed to go? And the message of the film itself is that you're going to find your way. And another
Mm.
thing that inspired this film for me was I love teen movies, and I always have. So there's a lot of aesthetic that comes from that, like Sleepover and Things I Hate About You, Legally Blonde, that type of stuff. But I always felt like I couldn't connect with those films because love is always, the payoff in the end. And I wanted to tell a film that, because I think love is important, and I do think she, has this love interest, and it's not that she doesn't love him, um, but I just think that sometimes, especially when you have this whole life ahead of you, love isn't your main goal in at that time in your life, or it's not the most important thing in your life. And I don't know how many girls' stories I've seen like that. And so it's kind of a movie for myself, but I'm just hoping that, other people will resonate with it as well. Is this, yeah, a girl who follows her heart, and when love isn't the main thing in your life.
Yeah.
And you can love someone, and it doesn't mean it's any easier to choose the next step. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much. I mean, like when I moved out here, I was in a 2-year relationship and we did long distance for 2 years. And like, I think a lot of people can relate to that. They have aspirations of, whether it's chasing a big dream of fame or whatever in LA, or just like wanting to get out of their hometown, but there's always something holding them back, whether it is a romantic relationship or whatever. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I think that, um, not having love be the payoff like it traditionally is, like you were saying, is a really like innovative concept and something that I would personally love to see a whole lot more in movies. And I think that people are starting to realize, like, oh, romance doesn't always have to be like the main
The
thing or the
focal
payoff.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I love that because I found the older I get, the more cynical I get about love. So like romance in movies, I'm just like, like I love when that isn't the actual, payoff in the end. So thank you for that.
And for me too, when I was 18, I love, but when I was 18, I was very like realistic and driven about my goals as a creative and an artist. And I never took relationships seriously till later on in my life. So because that wasn't my focus. And so I really like also align with your message that as for like a young inspiring artist or entrepreneur, whoever, I feel like it can really go across the board, not just for artists, but for, yeah, especially women in general. Like a relationship isn't all that we want all the
Right.
time, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And it's not so much that I don't love love, because I do love, and that hints throughout the movie, because it's still, got your rom-com feel to it,
Yeah.
and well, the other side too, because I can see now that I'm older too, how someone might want to stay in their hometown. That makes them happy and building a life with someone they love. But I just think that's the point of view we see so much that I think it's time we, see the other point of view.
Yeah.
Granted, that's good, but
Yeah.
there's other.
And I could see the aesthetic that you were talking about in your short, what you had on the snippet on your website, right, Tessa?
Mhm.
Like you can definitely see that teenage rom-com vibe. I immediately picked up on it. So like kudos, you pulled it off. Like it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it's what was the turnaround time to, okay, so we have the short film and now we're doing the feature as far as like creating the rest of this story. Like how quickly were you able to do that? And did it just like continue to click for you and you just happen to have that momentum? Because that sometimes I feel like the writing is the hardest part, like to really just nail down. So any tips and tricks to how you just got that to be a bigger story?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
To say the least.
Yeah. I said we were doing the feature film before the draft was even written,
Mhm.
which is terrifying.
Yeah.
But
Girl,
but
I
I knew
know.
know this story, I know these characters, and I'll find it. And I think so much of that is just trusting that the story will come out, and it's showing up too. Like there were so many days where like I'd show up to the story, and whether that's like sitting in front of the script on my laptop or if it's just I love to daydream. So I'll just like lay in my bed, stare at the ceiling, and listen to music that is of the genre or of the movie that I'm writing. That'll
Yeah.
give me some
Mhm.
and let things roll. And I'll do like a lot of voice memos. I'm like, ooh, what if this happens, or like this and this. And it's I also co-write with my co-star, so I'll bounce a lot of ideas off of him, and he's so helpful of getting the juices flowing and like helping me figure out the path. So when we first did it, we thought that it was going to be the same as the short but just expanded.
Yeah.
And then I actually this is just a really crazy story that I won't veer off into. But because of the pandemic and the second shutdown in New York City, I spent 2 months in Ohio in January and February. And I ended up dating a guy who was exactly like the character from this short film.
Oh my
It's
God.
really weird. Like the first thing he said to me was like, I could prove why Ohio's so great, which is literally the premise of the show.
Yeah.
He was like, 24 hours and I'll show you why Ohio is so great.
Oh my
So this
God.
Ohio is great, and like the first thing he recommended where we go is a place that we actually went to in the short film. And I was like, God, this is so
Yeah.
weird.
Oh my God. Inception of real
Yes,
life and movie.
but I actually fell back into that trap a little bit where I kind of lived my movie. Whereas I started to fall for this guy a little bit, and I think that was the subconscious part of me grasping for safety of this, safe Ohio life with love that we all like. We almost fall for it because it's so
We
easy.
like feeling safe.
Yeah.
As humans.
Yes,
of course.
That's just human nature. Of course.
Yes, and I mean it is, but yeah, it's not what I want in life, but I was blinded by that because so many aspects. So anyways, I almost fell for it again and I had to re-escape Ohio back in February. But this whole trajectory I had with this guy kind of gave me more inspiration that clicked for my script. And I was like, wait. And so I took what I learned from that relationship and put that into the script. And so the short is still the essence of the feature, and the characters are definitely the same. And we get to learn more about them, which I've always known about them before. But our journey has a lot more ups and downs to it. And once I knew the beginning and end, and then this like little middle click part that got me over, it was just so easy from there. I mean, I don't know. I'm the type of person that like once I work on something, like I don't want to stop until I finish. And so I just days on days, I was up late till like 3 in the morning until I finally had a draft and sent it out. And then I've been, revising it since then. But the journey was very interesting because I was already planning things for the feature film, talking to an investor while not even having this draft finished. And I'm like, any day now, this will be finished because I don't want to. It's this thing you don't want to force your creativity because then it doesn't come out authentically.
Right.
But you also want to make sure you give it that opportunity and nurture it to come out. Because I think that so much of it is like trying to get yourself into that place where it's going to come out. But then once you actually are like sitting there and you're there and it just like flows out and you're like, wait, this isn't hard at all.
Yeah. I think that goes to show
Yes.
too that there's no one way to do it all right. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people like want to know, well, like, okay, what are the steps that I have to take to make a movie? Like, what do I, and there's certain things, yes, you have to check off the list, but like they don't have to be done a certain way. Like writing, for instance, you said you just kind of like vomit write, whereas some people like they have to have an outline that's detailed. Like it just depends what works for you. As long as you get it written and you have certain things in there, like that's what matters. And the same goes for creating the film. You talk to investors before you had a script finished and like, it just, yeah, it's whatever is going to work for you and your process that's going to get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too because I kind of combine the outlining and your process is like similar to how I work. Like I like to discover the certain nuances as I write. So I don't want to have it all planned out because I get it. I'm that same way. Like half of my writing is me just sitting there with my thoughts and listening. I always have like a playlist on Spotify made for the film. So I can't write without that. Like I need the vibe and it takes time. But then once it's so weird. This always happens and I wonder if it sounds like the same thing for you. Like once I sit with myself for enough hours, all of a sudden it clicks and I can write for an extensive amount of time. And I feel like that's just a different way to some people's approach with outlining because they write and write and write this whole outline. And in the same way, it's almost like how we are when we sit and think. And so they're just like writing it though, I think, it all out and structuring. So that way when they have the script, the same thing goes for them. They're able to then just write the whole thing in one sitting. But I just feel like for me, it doesn't work to write and write all the details. I'll like kind of scribble, I'll kind of doodle, I'll like put certain things out. But then I just like really just like kind of need to just sit and daydream and see like, because the music will even inspire like scenery too when I'm like visually, right? So I just love that's your approach because I don't I hear a lot about outlining, but sometimes it's like, no, but I'm also just a kind of a dreamer. I don't really like to sit and write this intense outline. And I know that's okay, but it's cool to meet someone else who also kind of just does that.
Emerald Fennell does that too.
Who else does it?
Emerald Fennell.
Oh, okay, nice.
Oh, yes, a promising young woman.
And all of that. Yes.
Yeah, so it's so cool to see that. And another thing that you said that even hit me today, I was listening to this kind of more meditative podcast thing, and it's this idea of that when we say something, we set out to want to do something like a film and I take it, I was thinking about this in terms of filmmaking today too, especially that we're like, oh, like I really want to do a feature film, but then you say, but that's impossible. I feel like that's already you negating like your dream and in a way almost saying that you don't want it without you even thinking about it. So I just feel like what you did, it's so telling, is like it could have been really easy for you to be like, yeah, there's still, it's impossible for me to do this film this year. It won't work. And I think we do have to be realistic, but sometimes, but I just feel like if you just really have this strong desire, which you had, like, I can do it this year and I will, then I think you you you're only in the way of yourself, and you didn't allow that. You allowed room for you to really make it happen, and the doors opened, like you said. And so
Yeah,
that's
it's
really inspiring.
a weird balance of like, how do you know if when you're ready, but also that not being ready, but knowing you have to jump in and you will be ready when the time comes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the answer to that, but I think it always lies in your gut. And sometimes we overthink it because I mean, I do this. I've been overthinking with like crew members for like who's the right person, and you get in your own way. But just allowing for that silence and just trying to tune in however you do.
Mm.
Because
That's
I feel like,
powerful. Taking a
yeah,
moment of silence to like feel it. Yeah.
I think also, since we're already talking about the moment of silence, I think one thing too that's been so strong that's been able for this film to take this like giant leap is visualizing. I every single day, like, there's not a day that goes by that I don't like imagine my film, because I mean, I when you write the scripted too and directing and breaking down the scenes, you're constantly seeing the scenes, but just taking moments of like seeing your film up on the big screen and allowing yourself to feel
Yes.
what that feels like. And maybe that's the actor part of me that loves to do that, because you know we love emotions and expressing them. But just sitting with that feeling of seeing, like, because I know the beginning and ending of my film so well, and I already have the music to it, so I'll either listen to it or just imagine it. And it just, every single time I just get tears, and it's just amazing, like butterflies, like all these feelings. And it's like, how could I not make this film this year? Like, and that's what happens when like things, because obviously making a film is so difficult. So all these things start to happen. So yeah, sometimes you're like, fuck, can I get this right? And then I'll just like tell myself to shut up, lay down, and imagine, the beginning and endings, and like they're written and directed by Jessica Michael Davis. And then I'm like, this is why I'm doing it. This is like, it doesn't matter of this small thing, like, like my bank, it took so long for me to finally get this bank account open for the LLC. And it's been so annoying because like there's been little hiccups here and there. But then I'll just like, go into my music, and I'm like, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna work out. And it did. Like we just got approved for it last week. I'm
Nice.
like, oh thank God. But it's, yeah, I think it's just always reminding yourself like why you're doing this, and the end feeling, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean that like visualization, people that have vision boards and like that's such a powerful thing, is to like be able to visualize, like, and again, it can either be a very specific, like something you are going to accomplish, like visualizing just finishing the movie, or it can be something like, on the big screen, like, winning an Oscar for it. Like, it doesn't matter what level you do it to, as long as you're putting that energy there, I mean, like, as actors, we've all like practiced getting up there and receiving your Oscar and having your Oscar speech, and it's like, hey, I don't expect to win an Oscar, but like, it just putting that energy out there is gonna move me forward. It's that momentum, that forward thinking energy. So yeah, I think that's really an important tool that some people don't like, people just discount it. They're like, oh, it's just daydreaming, whatever. But no, like, that really does put that energy out there. Yeah. And I would love to go back. You mentioned the LLC. That's something that Carolina and I were very interested in hearing about, because we have an LLC for our production company, but I hear of a lot of people opening one specifically for their film, which it sounds like you did. So if you can speak to that, what made you make that decision and what that process is like?
Yeah. So I look up to filmmakers who I, want to see myself as the next step. So, and it's constantly evolving, and I'll find like new people to kind of grasp onto and follow on Instagram, and like see like, ooh, what are they doing that's working for them? Um, and so currently, like, my two people that I look to are Diane Bell and Jim Cummings, who have both gone to Sundance with their films and are just incredible mentors within the indie world. They're really good about putting out Q&As and talkbacks and just helping filmmakers. But both of them have talked about creating LLCs for their films and how important that is. And so it wasn't really a question for me. I was like, okay, this is the next step. Um, and I think it's important. Well, what they say is important, is because you don't want to, there's all this money coming in and out for the film now, and you don't want to cross that with personal funds. And I mean, I'm not an accountant, and that stuff is overwhelming, and creating it has been overwhelming. But I just, whenever I'm confused about something, I'll either like ask my dad, who is a businessman, or look up something, Google something. Like, what is an S corp? I don't know what it is. But so inkfile.com was the website I used, which was recommended from Jim Cummings in one of his like talkback things. And it's really easy. You go into your state and like how to, create the LLC. And we did it in Ohio because it's being shot in Ohio. I'm from there, and it was also way
I was just going to
cheaper.
say it's probably so much cheaper.
And yeah, hello.
Listeners, our dog
She's
is
getting kisses.
Yeah, it's so cute.
They have like a certain time limit of how long I can be on this, and then they're my attention. I created the LLC with my co-star, co-producer, and then honestly, it was really all through Inkfile that made it simple.
Because what does it actually service? Does it like easily to break? Does it kind of structure your LLC, like the profits or where the investment money goes? Is that what it does? Like, what is?
No. Well, they give you all that, like, it files it to the state for you. It gets you all the documents you need. You get some incentives with like the certain thing that you get. So someone called me and I was able to ask a bunch of questions about like how it works in terms of taxes and stuff like that. I haven't brought on someone yet, but I'll eventually bring on someone to deal with the account. And then they also go ahead and get in touch with a bank for you. So I just went, you don't have to do that, but I did because they already had all my information. So that was an easy step where someone from the bank called me and I was like, great, like, let's get this done now. And then it just keeps it, I think, nice and easy for you. So you can access all the documents you need within one thing.
Cool.
Yeah. And then in terms of the bank helped me set up a payroll bank account and a checking bank account because I was very confused about the whole like how to pay out of people, and then how to like there were some banks that looked like they were like charging for deposits and transactions.
Yeah.
And like what is happening with business bank accounts?
For sure.
And I'm still not a pro. Like I'm learning as I go, and it's very overwhelming. But I think honestly, you just have to dive in and figure out the ropes as you go and turn to people. I mean, like Google is luckily a great aspect. I think I was looking up some YouTube videos of like LLCs and the differences and why you should not do like a single LLC. Why you should always have someone as a member because it just protects you and your business better when you're
a partnership. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, hello there. I didn't see you come in. I'm Shane O'Hare of the Geekscape Games Podcast, the #1 video game podcast on the Geekscape.network. Join myself, Derek Krenevelt, and a guest every fortnight as we discuss video game news, video game reviews, and dissections. That's Geekscape Games every 2 weeks on Geekscape.net.
Like you said, there's just so much to look into, and it's not just this one easy decision like, okay, I have an LLC, that's it. No, there's like so many micro decisions amongst creating one. So I think that sounds like that system kind of gives you almost someone to ask advice for, like go for advice, and then easily organizes everything into one place. So that's what I'm hearing, and it sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even just creating an LLC for an individual film, that's not something I had really heard of. Carolina, you've heard of that more than I had. But it really does make sense. I mean, it's like the big studios and stuff, like they might not be creating specifically an LLC per film, but that's because they have, a business account with payroll, that they have somebody taking care of, that they have all of those things. And it's like on the independent level, you probably don't. So this at least kind of allows you to make your film its own like entity that you then are, paying the people out from, and all of that is like taken care of, rolled up into one business model that is separate from you and whatever else you create. So like even just on the organizational level, it seems like it really does make sense.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't know how production companies who create different films, like within the indie world, do it. But for example, Jim Cummings, who has done multiple films, I know that he creates a new LLC with each film, because that way, if something happens with one film, God forbid, it doesn't affect another film or the people who worked on that film.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it helps clearly organize and keep everything in its own.
It almost sounds, from what I'm hearing and the talks I've heard about LLCs for films, it's just when you're getting that investor money and how to organize it and deal with it properly. I think that's when I think you would need an LLC more or less for your film, because I wouldn't say that that's something you need for every single film, like any average independent filmmaker, especially if you're starting, or are going to need. But I think if you plan to distribute it, pay back investors, have this bigger production involved to cover yourself and to have everyone paid out correctly, I think that's probably when you would need one. Tell me if that's like what your thoughts behind that too were.
Yeah, definitely. Because with Escaping Ohio, we did the crowdfunding and raised 4,400, and but we still have to turn that into taxes. But as an actor and creator, I already deduct a lot of things, so I didn't worry about the LLC for any of my short films. I just put that as like a tax write off, and I deal with an accountant who knows about acting and stuff like that. So he helps me in terms of what I can and can't deduct. I hope he's helping me, because I just give him a list of things and he's like, okay, let's deduct this.
Yeah.
Smart.
But yeah, when we're starting to make profits now and distributions, all that's going to come with this film, that's when I was like, okay, like we should do this the right way, get an LLC. Our budget is 154K, because if we were making like a small budget, like a 10 grand film and Kickstarter and stuff like that, honestly, maybe you don't need an LLC.
Right.
You can pay people out of your pocket. You can still deduct things for your film. But when you're dealing with a bigger amount, I think it's probably for everyone's own safety to go ahead and get that separate LLC.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad that we're making this distinction here, because I think I didn't want like listeners to think like, okay, now I need to figure out this LLC. Like, no, there's like, I think a right amount of money and where you see your film going to when you need to make that kind of decision, because it's, again, like a lot of other extra paperwork and money to even support the LLC, as we know with our own shit.
Well, like, yeah, because our LLC is based in California, which has an $800 yearly fee. So yeah, like it can get a little crazy. But again, if you're able to do it somewhere else where it's a little cheaper, like you did with Ohio, that is going to affect it too. So, listeners, if you are thinking like, oh, this makes sense for me, but I don't want to deal with that, like, think about filing it somewhere else. You can, it's the same thing as like actors that can be local hires other places. Like, think about where, if you're from somewhere in the Midwest and now you live in LA, file it back home at your parents' address, or, whatever you need to do. So yeah.
Ohio, I think, was $100. So
Yeah.
I paid $250 for like the whole package that got me like help and agreements and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure that just the filing fee itself is $100.
Yeah.
Right. And see that all starts to add up. Like you're like, okay, now I have to pay this fee to file things. You always have to pay. We've found like even just to file our freaking like certificates or taxes anytime here, like just to be like, yeah, our annual like Tessa and I are still working together. There's a fee for that. It's like $20 or something, nothing crazy, but still like there's always a fee attached. So it's just something to keep in mind, I think, for everyone listening, like when it is appropriate. But like now that you have these bigger plans of like a 150K budget, are you looking at investor pooling only? Talk to us about how you plan on getting the funds for that.
We're actually still in the midst of that, which is
Cool.
also scary. So we can always, I'll talk to you in a couple months, once that's all finished and wrapped.
Absolutely,
But,
babe. You got this. It'll happen. It's all good.
I mean, I've definitely been in talks with people. You know, I'm the type of person that I'm not precious with my work. I love putting it out there. And even if, like, yes, it's terrifying to like put something out there because people think things and stuff like that. But at the same time, like, if you feel good about your work, like, I put it out there, you know. But that does pay off, and I get people's vibes here and there, and they're like, oh, I'm really interested in what you're doing. Like, let me know if I can help. I do have I work at a bar, I bartend on the side. A lot of high-end people, and I've been working there for a while, and they've been seeing my growth and are impressed and just support me in general as an artist. So I've been in talks with people here and there about investing in this. And granted, like no names have been signed or anything, because I'm going to be going with WeFunder, which is a crowd equity platform. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
We've heard of it because we've talked a little bit about it with other guests, but neither of us has like looked into it enough to be super familiar with it.
I think isn't that I think we had recently a producer come, and it's cool because it kind of divvies up the the investors get, you know, already there's a contract, right? Yes, that's what's so cool about it. There's a contract already hosted on the platform for your investors to easily just come in and they can sign the contract, and you're not dealing with extra negotiations or anything. It's just very clear cut. And you can is there a set amount though? That's what I'm wondering. That's
for an investor, like a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Just $100 is the minimum.
Oh shit, that's so cool.
The amazing thing is that people can come in and invest whatever amount. So you can have, you know, maybe like 100 investors, and it's like little amounts here and there, or bigger amounts. But I think that's really because what I loved about Season Spark is this feeling of community and all these people like feeling like they're a part of your film. And I actually met people through that film, like one of our producers who jumped on and took the associate producer credit and supported us. And I wouldn't have met him if it wasn't for that. And he's such a great person. And so I love that feeling. And with that now being an investment thing where people can make their money back, you know, we're not just offering incentives. I really, really love that structure. And I've been able to prove myself through a website and video and presentation, because I don't know if it's maybe my insecurities that come out or me being a woman. But when I'm with people, especially men who have money and power, it does feel like this asking when I'm in person. At least the people that I have spoke to, they're very nice people, but it does feel like a position where
you're asking for a favor almost then.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm in my best environment when it's in person. Yeah. So when I'm able to hand over a platform and be like, this is what I can do, and this is an amazing opportunity, and you can invest in anything, but this is the only time this film is happening, and I want you to be a part of it. And I feel so much more confident in that structure because I know I can prove myself. And so that's why I wanted to go with WeFunder.
I love that.
Being able to show myself to the people who I know who would be interested, but maybe are a little doubting. And I'm like, ease your doubts right now. Yeah. And also too, the cool thing about that is because I have spoke to someone who wanted to maybe be a full investor, like cover the whole film. And I don't know, maybe if it's the right person, that'd be amazing. But I like the idea of having little people here and there, and it doesn't really feel like anyone certainly owns the film,
Mm-hmm.
unless that's someone you want to work with side by side.
Yeah.
But I didn't know them. And I'm like, oh, like, I don't know how this relationship's going to work. I feel like I'd be more comfortable having, I want my say on the film. That's why I'm doing independent film and going this route. And not doing
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel that because I mean, honestly, even if it is someone you know and trust, like anything could happen. They could lose all of their money somehow. Like, anything could happen. That's such a big risk to put all of that, pressure on one person. So I get that. Yeah.
and now not having to get an entertainment lawyer.
Mhm.
Like I love that it just does all it for you. Kind of like how
Exactly.
Inkfile does that, and now WeFunder does that, and it's like I'm letting all these websites handle the third party stuff because that stuff can get like confusing.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And expensive.
Yeah.
Too, making appointments and getting, I don't know how,
Mhm.
that could just maximize all that time. That's
Absolutely.
I just feel like it's so easy to present your film, and the tiers are like, where you can come and invest. And I think it's just you feel more confident, approaching those investors too. If you were to meet them in person, you'd be like, well, here's me, but here's the platform. And it's like very clear cut, and you just feel confident in presenting that. I think that's because, like, back to what you were saying, it can feel like this weird pressure of like, if
Mhm.
you like have to, you feel like you're asking, then presenting an opportunity. And that's the difference, right? So I feel like the more I hear about this platform, the more I'm like intrigued by it too. Because see, and Spark is like this real, like you were saying, it's a really cool filmmaking community, but they don't quite they don't do those contracts and stuff. That's like really critical if you're
Mhm.
looking for like big money and to credit people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I'm curious too, going back to the whole LLC conversation, this is the one thing I really have no idea about. If you create an LLC for your film specifically, is like, do you eventually does you
Does
just
it-
keep paying for that every year?
Yeah.
Like, how long does that go on for?
I've looked into that, and I believe so, but I think you can also close a business at a point. You can like terminate
Okay.
it. And don't know, I haven't looked so far into like the fees that come with that, or if there's anything, any cons to that. But I do know that's an option. I'm kind of the person that's like, I'll cross that bridge when it
Yeah.
comes, which could be good or bad. So, but I do think too, I mean, this is maybe me just thinking in long term, but I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to continue making films, and hopefully, my work excites people, and they'll be like, oh, what was the first film this filmmaker made? And then go back and, rent this film, and
It still
and
profits.
Yeah.
Continues to profit.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think if we just I love your thought process. You're just so like, you have a really good sense of like faith and envisioning your future to so positive, so that way like you're not getting hung up on all the ifs, ands, and buts like along the way. So in a way, most people be like, well, girl, you should do your research, you should know if like you got to pay this fine, but you're just like, yeah, but it's gonna make money, so I'm good. I love that. I love your spirit. That's amazing. And I feel like you're going to be really successful just because you are doing the work behind it, but you're also not getting hung up on like all these things. And I think sometimes we just need to jump in and figure it out.
Yeah.
That's scary, but
It
and
is.
yeah, it's like, girl, maybe I should go do that research. But I'll cross that bridge when it comes, and then I'll tell you whether or not I should have done that.
Fair enough. You live and you learn. That's the whole thing. Like, you make mistakes and you learn from them. Or hopefully it's not a mistake and you still learn, and you just keep doing it because it's worked for you, So yeah, it's the experience.
Or if we
is gonna
can
teach
find
you.
that answer for you too, or if we like, because we're always trying to learn and figure things out ourselves. That's why we have the show. We're like, we're just figuring it out as well. Like we can absolutely also, if we find anything, circle back to you guys who are listening, and to you, Jessica, because I think we're the exact same as you, in the exact same place, just like figuring it out and growing. And we need to like, help each other if we figure stuff out. That's just where it's at.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Hey, girl. figuring it out.
Yeah, we're always everybody's always learning the whole time. It doesn't matter if you've been doing this for 20 years, like, because everything
Yeah.
changes too. You know, once you think you have a handle on filmmaking, it's like something new is changing. So yeah. Cool. Well, Jessica, can you please tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can find your work, and how they can get a hold of you or keep in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm Jessica Michael Davis across all platforms. On Instagram, my website, jessicamichaeldavis.com. At jessicamichaeldavis@gmail.com is a way to contact me, or just slide in my DMs. I'm on Instagram a lot. Yeah, I'm on Twitter now recently, but I rarely get on there. I haven't figured out the tweeting aspect of it. But I think I'm Jessica Michael D on Twitter.
Cool.
And are you going to have fundraising set out for your film via Weave Hunter for Everyone? Are you going to be posting about that there too on your Instagram?
Yeah, we'll be launching that in like the next 2 weeks.
Okay, perfect.
We'll be blasting all about that. I'm definitely good, but also I think it helps me as well is to put, like, I feel like I grow with the people in my community, and Instagram is the way that I like talk to everyone, like all my friends and people who have met along this journey. So I like to put all my information out there, and we kind of learn together. So I'll probably be sharing a lot of the ups and downs along the way as well.
Perfect.
Love that.
We love to see that because it's the real, behind it. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. So we'll definitely reshare too when we see that come up, because we love to blast that. So thank you, Jessica, for taking the time today, meeting with us. I feel like you got a good grip on this, girl. So just keep on moving forward and envisioning. That's so exciting. Like,
yeah,
we're feeling that energy too. And I feel like a lot of people in our community, we just gotta keep on moving on and making stuff, like just doing it.
Yeah.
So I love that you're in that same space.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I've listened to a few of your episodes too, and I feel like a lot of your guest members are in the same mindset, like Emily Sky, and there was another girl I listened to, and I love what you're putting out there, so thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. No, thank you. We're like, that's the thing. We love, like, when I saw your gram and saw that you were also so open about your step-by-step process, like you said, you put that out there. I was like, this is, she gets it and she wants to share. And I love that. That's how we'll learn and grow together. So Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks for listening to Femme Regard Podcast. If you like what you hear, tune in every Friday for more tips on the filmmaking business and insightful conversations with industry professionals.
We can only grow with your support, so please subscribe, share, rate, and review. You can also join the Femme Fam on Patreon. For more on us, check us out at femregard.com.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.